Somewhere. All right, think we're on. All right, so let's do this. So today's date, D-Day if you're a turkey, but let's go ahead for the rest of us. November 21st, 2018, and this is how the frack we got here. I'm your host, Will Buchanan, and I know we're starting a little bit late, guys. I certainly apologize. Updates gotta be run. It's just the way it is. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is with really a lot of our stuff. It's just that when we run, it's like when the computer says update, well, you got to update. There's just no real way around that. So I apologize. But we're here. We're all here. So with that being said, guys, first and foremost, welcome. And above all else, happy Thanksgiving. Pre-Thanksgiving, if you will. Reason being just because, well, like I said, if you're a turkey, you're either alive or you've been pardoned. One of the two. For the rest of us, if you're not traveling, hopefully you're being safe, because if you're like me, I'll be traveling as well as tomorrow. Like I said, if you're stuck on Los Angeles on the 405, or if you're stuck on I-65 or I-95 or any other major highway, first and foremost, be safe. If you're in an airplane, eventually you'll get there. But above all else, guys, be safe on this holiday. And like I said, usually it's a holiday where we're thankful, but also at the same time, let's not remember the genocide that occurred because some pilgrims decided to take out Native Americans. Anyway, so before I get into this shindig about why we do have the frack we got here, I do have to give the adult disclaimer. This is an adult podcast, which means things of adult language and content may be shared. So viewer discretion is advised. If that is not your cup of tea, please make the necessary adjustments in the next 3 seconds. All right, so that's been 3. So for everybody else that's still sticking around, welcome. Vaughn's already started sneaking that Thanksgiving dinner. You can't fool me. No, I'm like you. I'm pretty much looking forward to seeing what Thanksgiving dinner I'm going to get. So, hopefully it'll be good. I'm hoping. But anyway, guys, and thank you, Vaughn, for watching. But pretty much what we're looking at here, and like I said, the way how the frack we got here works, we literally take the events of last week and the previous week, and we just try to make sense of it all. Really is what we try to do. And for the simple fact of the matter is just that I know for some Andres it's a little bit how can I put this in there? So I know I find myself saying this. I really find myself saying this on a daily basis. Not on a daily basis, but a weekly basis. I say on a weekly basis is how the fuck, and I mean that very likely, how the fuck can Trump outdo himself? Well, let's start with the obvious. Jamal Khashoggi, the American writer who was actually killed on foreign soil, and there was an investigation where the CIA had sat there and said that the Saudi prince was the one that was basically arranged the whole killing, like Godfather style, really. So you would think that the CIA, our CIA, mind you, has sat there and said that yes, it is highly more than likely that the Saudi prince is responsible for basically having Mr. Khashoggi killed. So what did Trump have to say about this, I wonder?
White House press release exonerating Saudi Arabia and the murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi. President Trump seemed to dismiss reports indicating Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was involved in the killing, writing, maybe he did and maybe he didn't. The statement coming just before the president was to receive a report from the CIA about the murder.
We're going to have a report on Tuesday, and it'll be very complete.
A senior U.S. official says the CIA has assessed the Crown Prince directed the murder of Khashoggi. And just a few days ago, Vice President Pence said everyone involved would be held to account.
The United States is absolutely committed to ensuring that all of those responsible are held accountable.
The president has been steadfast in his commitment to the Saudis as allies, and this is just the latest show of support.
At the same time, we do have an ally, and I want to stick with an ally that in many ways has been very good.
The statement points to the economic ties between the two countries. Quote, the kingdom agreed to spend and invest $450 billion in the United States. This is a record amount of money, but the State Department says the U.S. has only received $14.5 billion as part of the deal. The statement coming after weeks of measured rhetoric about the role the Crown Prince may have played in the murder, going against evidence from the American intelligence community.
He told me that he had nothing to do with it. He told me that, I would say, maybe 5 times.
It's not the first time the president has gone against intelligence agencies. Despite an August report by United Nations Nuclear Watch Group, Trump denied that the North Koreans were continuing to develop their nuclear capabilities.
Even though there was talk about that they're putting new sites.
Maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't believe that.
And perhaps most notably, he's spoken out against allegations that Russians meddled in the 2016 election.
All I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
While the president says members of Congress may go a different direction when it comes to repercussions for Saudi Arabia, he's also downplaying any further evidence. The White House writing, quote, "We may never know all of the facts surrounding the murder of Mr. Jamal Khashoggi. In any case, our relationship is with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia."
Now, what I find, how can I put this? We will never know what truly happened to Mr. Khashoggi. He walked into a consulate. He walked to a consulate to get a marriage license for marrying his fiancée. He walked in. He did not walk out. You've been told that the people who took him by force were associated with Saudi Arabia. They also sat there and admitted he was killed by same group who attempted to take him. They also said that in so many cases, and the CIA confirmed, the Saudi prince himself more than likely arranged the hit. But, Mike Pence, we may never know. We may never know what happened. I just want to sit there and go, it's one thing when you're just amazed. It's amazing to me that, well, number one, American was killed on foreign soil, and Trump just went, hey, it's not the Saudis, okay? The Saudis, they're my people. They're my people, okay? Believe me. They bought so many of my properties that I believe them in every word they say. You know what? The Saudi prince is a personal friend of mine, okay? And I know the best people, okay? Nobody knows more best people than me. No, Trump, you've had half your administration either kicked out, indicted, or arrested. But yes, you know the best people. And it amazed me so because like a lot of you guys already know that yes, we have a compromised president. And not just Russia compromised, he's actually Saudi compromised. Because the Saudi Arabians practically own him. Putin's passing him around. Putin's kind of passing him around like the new fish in jail. Let's be honest. Trump is the bitch that's being passed around among other countries that have money because he's compromised. And what do you say, BJ? How much blood money did Baby Huey get this time? Supposedly, he said $450 billion, but really 14.5, which I'm about to go show the next clip about that. Yep, Beretta did that shit. You ain't lying, Vaughn. And Trump's money means more. I doubt he'd care if it was a Fox News anchor. Honestly, it amazed me so that I would think that if it was anything else, he would still act, nonchalant. Like he will believe. But then again, he'll believe anything else over his own defense contractors, which is amazing that he still believed again with the Kavanaugh situation, where there's so much smoke that again he will sit there and go, well, he just didn't do it, and I believe him because he said it. But it also amazes me more is that when it was suggested, mind you, that that he might be in somewhat of a how can I put this ever so nicely? I'm not gonna say he caught with his hand in the cookie jar, but damn near close. And the other clip I want to show about this was honestly Bob Corker, which I don't know about you because I'm from Tennessee. I can't stand the fact that we're stuck with Blackburn and Bill Lee. And that's a whole nother story. But Tennessee, historically, has always been a red state. And unfortunately, Bob Corker, who was also a terrible politician, but if you're a Republican, you're happy. But It's amazing how you can be Republican and you're basically shooting your own self in the foot because you're voting your own interest. But that's not here nor there. He was asked about the Trump response that he gave to Saudi Arabia, and this is what he said.
To face the nation. Protests continued over the weekend as the Department of Health and Human Services announced that there are 2,053 minors still in their custody, but that they knew the location of all of the children and created a task force to reunite them with their families. The agency said that 522 children previously in the custody of Customs and Border Protection have been reunited with their families, and another 16 children will be by later today. But the question of a permanent fix for what to do with the families who cross the border illegally is stalled in Congress, despite pressure building for all sides to come together and address the controversial issue of immigration. We begin with Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. He joins us from Chattanooga this morning. Senator, do you believe the U.S. was committing a human rights violation by separating migrant families?
Well, Margaret, it obviously is not something that is realistic. It's not something that appreciates these young children, and it certainly was done in a ready, fire, aim way. Obviously, there was no preparation for it. I can't imagine any American's heart not going out to these families, knowing these children are being separated, and then where were they going? So I'm glad the administration took the steps they took. That's led to another crisis, if you will, because of the 20-day rule that exists. And so, you know, the administration obviously made a large mistake. I know that some in the White House want to use the immigration issue as a force to activate the base elections, but obviously the president realized that was a mistake. And now it's up to us in Congress to work with them to come up with a longer-term solution.
Well, on that solution, you're supporting legislation that would essentially allow for longer-term detention of families, but to be held together. Isn't this just indefinite detention at taxpayer expense?
Yeah, so look, Margaret, I wish that we had passed the bill. The House could have made it better that came out in 2013 that was comprehensive. We keep trying to deal with these micro issues, all of which are important, whether it's DACA or this issue. I realize that before the election that's very unlikely to occur, but we need to deal with the whole of the issue. We've got worker needs in our country. We've got this issue of we do need to be a nation of laws, and so we need to look at the whole thing. In the interim, between now and November, it's likely we will only deal with some of the micro issues, and the issue you just raised is a problem. So
do you even have the votes to deal with that micro issue in the Senate?
I hope we will. I know that Jim Jordan's coming on next. I know the House has some things that are coming up this week. But I hope that'll be the case. I think that the Cruz-Feinstein bill, while I'm not sure every detail's been laid out in it yet, but the fact that you've got two people with such ideological differences coming together on this issue does bode for some hope in the Senate.
I want to ask you about really kind of an American values question. If you take a look at the latest CBS News poll, our battleground tracker, it says 73% of Republicans say those who enter the U.S. should be punished as an example of toughness, while 27% said they should be treated well as an example of kindness. What does that say to you about the identity of your party right now?
Margaret, we do need to be a nation of laws, and we need to get this right, and we need to cause legal immigration to be easier than it is. We've got needs in our country. I've just never been a part of a group that hated someone for wishing something better for their life. Maybe they have a little different color of their skin and they speak differently. I just have never hated someone who traveled through tough conditions to try to come to a place where they could realize their dreams. And so I'm just not part of that group that wants to punish. What I do want to do is make sure that
But the majority of Republicans polled identify as part of that group.
Yeah, I understand. And I think it's a shame that what we've done with immigrants is to try to cause them to be a part of a terrorist group. I mean, many of these people truly, especially in Central America, are living in terrible conditions. And again, we need to be working with Central American governments, many of whom I've met with, on the issues there to make sure that in those countries there's more opportunity to live without threat of crime. But look, we need to enforce our laws, and when people break them, obviously, especially over and over again, there needs to be a punishment, quote, quote. But look, again, we got to realize these people are wanting to live in a place like we live. We're the most fortunate people on earth to live in this country. Yeah. That's why people are drawn to us. And again, I don't want to enforce laws out of a sense of hate or animosity towards people who want to live a life like I do.
I also want to ask you about a fight that you have been willing to have with the president, and that's over trade and tariffs. You recently accused your fellow Republicans of being cultish for not trying to block the president and support your action to rein in his ability to escalate through more tariffs. Do you see any ability for Republicans to stop the president?
I do, and Margaret, if I could make sure people understand, there's a 201 section of the Trade Act that right now is against China dealing with washing machines and solar panels. There's a 301 component to deal with their theft of our intelligence here in the country, their theft of what our companies are using to create products. That's not what I'm speaking to. The president broadly has used Section 232 of the Trade Act, which is national.
Okay, so I'm sorry guys, I got a little bit long-winded on that. So pretty much, if you haven't already figured out by now, Corker, well, BJ, you already said it best. Corker's a yes man. There's just no way around that. I'm sorry guys, the video kind of updated previously, so what was going on was that it was pretty much Corker again saying that he, in his own case, was against what Trump did as far as siding with the, saying it was a press release for Saudi Arabia and not the United States. So again, it was just him basically going on lines of saying, well, flat out, it's one of those things where he just goes, I just don't get the president. But at the same time, you're going to go ahead and just, I don't know, not say shit. You're kind of like that kid that wants to talk. You're like that kid who's associated with the mob boss who really isn't going to say shit. But when the mob boss is gone, you talking big shit. But when the mob boss shows up, you fall right in line with everybody else. Corker, that's pretty much you. And I'm glad that you're on your way out. But at the same time, I don't want to feel like the damage is done. I really want to say that as far as that goes. But again, it's where people always, like I said before, about Trump being a purchased Russian agent who's now being passed over to the Saudis. And it's interesting that he brings up one other, there's also another video I want to show about this, to where it's, well, I'll just explain it. I'll just let the video explain itself.
Has nothing to do with me. They buy apartments from me, they spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much.
The Washington Post in a statement, put out a statement, they said that you're putting your personal interest, your commercial interest.
Well, I have nothing to do with it. Just so you understand, I don't make deals with Saudi Arabia.
I deal with the Saudis.
I don't have money from Saudi Arabia.
I don't think anybody sells much more real estate than I do to the Japanese, the Saudis, etc. They buy the most expensive apartments in the world that I happen to build. And I know the people, and I like the people.
I have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, and I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me, they spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much. I have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. I love the Saudis. Many are in this building. I have no business whatsoever with Saudi Arabia. Couldn't care less. Saudi Arabia, I like the Saudis. They're very nice. I make a lot of money with them. They buy all sorts of my stuff. All kinds of toys from Trump. They pay me millions and hundreds of millions.
I don't know about y'all, but He says he's not compromised. Looks like a compromise to me. Granted, there is a big ass contrast between 1987 and 2016. But I say more of a compare because let's also be honest. He still takes in money, and he is right. Many foreigners do buy up a lot of properties, mainly being the Saudis. But again, you're basically being passed around like the fresh fish in jail. And a lot of people, you Trump supporters, you midnight chatters, you who thank you for watching this podcast, but you guys wait until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to jump on your conspiracy soapbox and tell me that I'm wrong about the president, that it's all about conspiracy to bring him down. No, you can't bring somebody down who's already bought and paid for. At this point, he's just doing his job, like the high-priced hoe that he is. And yes, the president is a hoe. I said that. I'll stand by that. But it's the whole thing where I was saying beforehand, something I'll say beforehand, you just cannot sit there and not say that he's not compromised, which he is. And, now that he's allowed murder to occur, we're all saying, what else would he honestly be okay with? And that thing I keep on wanting to keep on harping about is how much is to the point to where a lot of those people who still support Trump, aside from racists, bigots, and xenophobes, because that's his fan base, and that's racist, by the way, also his fan base. But everybody else at this point, how are we going to sit here and literally say like it's okay, really like it's okay? Let's see. I think, what do you say, Angie? I think he lies on purpose. I think he thinks it's a big ass con. I think as a con man, he's just going with it. What do you say? On Trump is to world leaders what his wives are to him. Inception. And it goes max headroom as soon as you talk about Mr. Orange. And yes, I've noticed that when I do talk about Agent Orange, everything just seems to go to shite. So thank you guys for sticking with me so far. Watch as we get away from him, or try to, it suddenly gets better. Mark my words on that. But one thing I did want to talk about was that, don't have a video for it yet, but everybody's wondering at this point, if you're like me, you're probably wondering what's the deal with the Mueller investigation. Well, as of today, Trump did submit his written answers to Robert Mueller's questions. Now, a lot of you people are wondering about, if you're not wondering what's going on with the investigation so far there have literally been over 50 indictments, 15 arrests, and so far 3 prison sentences. 3 prison sentences. Thank you for watching me this far. I mean, it's one of those things where I just want to sit there and go, if you don't believe there's not so much smoke about this administration, you would swear Snoop Dogg was in the Secretary of the Interior somewhere. But he did submit his written questions because, and I cannot make this up, his lawyers, including Rudy Giuliani, which is one of the lawyers, sat there and said that if he were to answer Robert Mueller's questions directly, there might be a chance he may perjure himself. So the one thing I found about this, because the deal was to get him to write down written answers, because, if it's written, it can be argued. The moment you sit there and say something, that's when you're held liable, which is the reason why his lawyers sat there and was like, oh no, you can't go right in front of him and just allow this man to fire out questions. And they argued that. To the point to where Mueller finally said, fine. If he wants to written, they finally agreed that he can give written answers. But let's also be honest, Nixon tried the same thing. This isn't the first time an American president submitted written answers to an investigation that may or may not involve him. Nixon did it with Watergate when he submitted his answers to written out questions. So again, but Nixon, well, the history books will say Nixon actually resigned as president before he was convicted, but let's be honest, he was found guilty. So it's not surprising in the same sense that Trump himself, which we all keep hoping for, myself included, I keep hoping that the damage can be undone, just because now the Democrats are about to take over the House, and because they're taking over the House, they have subpoena power now. But here's one thing, and I'm going to stress this before, because this podcast isn't all about Trump, and I know it's going to be shocking. This podcast is not all about Trump. To all Democrats who may stumble upon this podcast, I do have to. Oh, before I do this, let me see. We say Angie, he gives to turn his answer like an ACT. Yeah, unfortunately, and though there will be an interview, that is not argued. He will be an interview. So the interview is unavoidable because if Mueller does actually request the president at some point, there will be an interview. Trump is going to be out here soon enough. We hope, BJ, but not hope fast enough. But before I play this next video, I do have to say this to all Democrats. Okay, you guys are about to as of next year, you're going to be sworn into the House, which means that you now have the ability to subpoena and legislation because the Senate is more tied to the Supreme Court, which unfortunately the Republicans still have majority in. But Democrats, I have to say this before I play this video, get your shit in order, because I've always said this best. Democrats are smarter than Republicans, but Republicans are better at unifying than Democrats. Now, I never associate myself as a Democrat. I damn sure don't associate myself as a Republican, because that would be like voting, that'd be like second place Kanye. So but because we have so many other parties out there, these are the only main two that are actually heard about, aside from the Independent, Green Party, and all the rest of them that rarely get mentioned. But Democrats, if you are going to, I hate to break it, if you're going to be the janitor to this hotel room after a rock party has been through it, honestly, learn to do what the Republicans have done. Unify. The whole thing about the Speaker of the House, because Nancy Pelosi has been the Speaker of the House for some time when the Democrats had majority, and of course she was the minority Speaker. So again, it's come up to contention now that Nancy Pelosi kind of feels like she's gonna get it. She's a shoo-in, but it seems that they're still squabbling, which is what they're going to talk about here.
Now, and I wonder, Simone and Kirsten, if I can begin with you. Is the president's support something that Nancy Pelosi wants in this leadership fight?
let me just say, Nancy Pelosi and frankly House Democrats do not care what the current president of the United States thinks about who should be their leader. We don't care. Look, what we care about is what the House Democrats think. And I think House Democrats have a decision to make. Manu pointed out a very important point. Nancy Pelosi does not currently have a challenger. If a challenger were to come forth, I think it's absolutely within someone's right to run for leadership. That's what our party is about. It's about democracy in action. So look, if somebody wants to step up, I encourage them to. But if they do, they need to demonstrate that they can do what Leader Pelosi has done, at least and better. And no one has emerged at this time.
So Kirsten, in a fictional world where you could imagine a Republican president reaching across the aisle and saying, listen, there's stuff we can work towards, and there is it possible that the president's outreach here is serious, that he sees the landscape in the last 2 years of his term, sees areas where the two parties can get together on some stuff, and it would be better for him to have a partner on the other side of the aisle?
Yeah, I don't know what he's thinking, but I do know that that's absolutely right. That if I think anyone in his position would look at this and say, I need to expand out beyond 40% of the country, and if I want to get reelected, I'm going to have to actually accomplish something, and I'm the one who's going to be held accountable because, it's a referendum on me, the next presidential race. So, and Nancy Pelosi, despite all of the attacks that the Republicans make on her to rile up their base, she's actually somebody who does work really well with all different kinds of people, and she's not the caricature, the San Francisco liberal caricature. She's a very pragmatic person who has been able to keep a very diverse caucus together, and I think actually would be willing to work on certain things like infrastructure, for example, which she said.
Can I say one more thing about the leadership race?
Please.
I think there's a lot of focus on Leader Pelosi, but she doesn't even have a challenger. No one talks about the fact that the highest-ranking black man in Congress, Jim Clyburn, had a challenger. Now I think he has secured enough votes to be the number 3 in the House. There's a real fight right now for the House Democratic caucus, and there's an opportunity to elect the first black woman in leadership in the leadership in the House. And I think that these are the kind of conversations that folks are currently having on the Hill, and that folks actually, or Democrats, are having throughout the country about what real representation looks like.
No question. And listen, the makeup of the new Congress is full of firsts, and I don't want to minimize that, but I do want to ask the question, Mary Catherine, to you. Well, Scott, here, the Republican view of this, is it that they want to have this Nancy Pelosi foil, as they could use in some of these midterm elections? It can be a rallying cry for some Republican voters.
Yeah, look, I think its use is questionable, or its efficacy is questionable. I think there's some who think that she can still be a good boogeyman for election. And in some cases, that might be the case. Look, I hate to ruin the suspense, but the president's not going to change his tone, and probably nobody's going to take down Nancy Pelosi. And here's the thing, she didn't step down when they were taking big losses, so it's hard to make the argument that she should now after this. She raises a bunch of money, she keeps them in line, and so unless there is a real credible challenger here, I don't see this happening.
Yeah, I mean, I see that argument. Odd timing. Scott, I'm going to give you the final word. Imagine that.
Yeah, I think it's noteworthy that a tiny percentage of Democrats are trying to dictate to the rest of them who the leadership should be. So their experimentation with direct democracy is like, I think, backfiring right now. The best thing Trump's got going for him, other than the economy, is all these deep divisions that clearly are going on between the new Democrat guard and the old guard. And so as long as that continues, no matter who the speaker is, it all inures to Trump's benefit if Democrats are fighting each other the way the way Republicans did after 2010 midterm.
Listen, fair point. Guys, thanks to you.
Okay, so really, first and foremost, fuck that guy. Second of all, unfortunately, he has a point. And I hate to say this for Republicans because sometimes they do have a point. And the whole division, because like I said about Democrats, your entire election run was based off the fact that you were basically going to clean up. Your whole thing was about getting Agent Orange and his administration out, reversing a lot of his policies. So you guys got the House, which is great. But you guys seem to have this issue of, okay, now that we got the House, who's going to be running the ship? And that amazes me so, is just that we literally have to sit here and squabble. Watch you squabble. You know, Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be it. She's already been there. Nothing has changed. You know, this, that, and the other. And I'm just thinking to myself, when the Republicans got in, they didn't squabble over who was the House Speaker. They didn't squabble over any of that. They actually had it set. Now, say what you will about Republicans, because I say a lot about Republicans, but I also say that the one thing they got down was that they unified. That, okay, this person was A, this person was B, this person was C, so far and so forth. But it's almost like Democrats, you amaze me how sometimes you can honestly sound so intelligent, but when it comes down to who really is going to be steering the ship, you guys are like, it's like watching a bunch of first graders wanting to be the line leader. That's what it is. Who wants to be line leader? Nobody gives a fuck. It doesn't really come with a position. It just means that you're the first person that's going to get the shit handed to them and just see what you're going to do about it. But again, it's one of those things where I've always said it's not that fucking crucial. But it is crucial that you do have somebody and that everybody gets behind said person, and then you can move forward, because the story has to be about how you're trying to make shit better. The story is going to be that we guys were on a platform of getting rid of Trump, but you guys came and turned around and for lack of better words, You can't even come out as the same team when you have half the Democrats saying they want Pelosi out, the other half supporting Pelosi. At the same time, the people who support Pelosi are like, well, she brings a lot of money and she brings a lot of donors and she always gets things done across the aisles and bipartisanship. Oh, let me get up. Let me. Okay. I'll be the first one to say it. Bipartisanship is kind of like Reaganomics. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It's almost to the point to where it is amazing how bipartisanship keeps getting said so many times that I literally just shake my head and I'm just like, it doesn't work because one side is not going to do with the other side. So this whole bipartisanship shit, it's a smokescreen. It's like saying you have two sides who are literally for different interests and who are going to well, for lack of better words, keep arguing and squabbling like they got nothing left to do. So, the whole bipartisanship thing doesn't work. My whole thing is also with Nancy Pelosi. It's one of those things to where pick her or else and get behind it and let that be the end of it is what it should be. But we're going to leave it at that. But let's actually do some good news because I know we're always down in some shit, but this is actually some good news I wanted to point out, especially if you're a friend of the herb. So let me just go ahead and play this little shindig because, like I said, we need some good news.
At shops as they began selling legal marijuana for the first time Tuesday. Tony DeCopel has more.
The land of the Puritans went to pot on Tuesday. Thousands got in line and stayed in line for up to 5 hours, all for a piece of the first legal record here in more than a century.
How does it feel to know that what you buy today and you walk out of here with will not put you in jail? It's absolutely.
Massachusetts is the 7th state to open retail marijuana shops, but the first to open them east of the Mississippi. And it comes as the cannabis industry celebrates a series of new highs, including more than $1 billion in retail sales this year and an estimated $700 million more next year in Massachusetts alone. But as more states see green, some critics see the potential for regret.
I hope it's not the case, but it's possible that in 20 years or 30 years we really look back and say, wow, can you believe back in 2018 we just allowed people to sell this stuff?
Dr. Sharon Levy runs the Adolescent Substance Use and Addiction Program at Boston Children's Hospital. She worries legalization could send kids the wrong message.
Is there a conflict between the profit you make here and the wider public health?
The state has spent years making sure that businesses like ours can't be pushing out marketing material.
Sam Barber is president of Cultivate, one of the pot shops that opened, putting an end to what he and his customers seem to agree is the most dangerous part of marijuana. It's prohibition.
Tony DeCopel, CBS News, Leicester, Massachusetts.
Okay, so really, Vaughn, lucky fucks. No, I always say the best. I'm a advocate of those who are a fan of cannabis. I myself do not smoke cannabis. I don't inhale. I don't do edibles. Nothing wrong with all the above, because I have sat there and said many a time on this podcast and other podcasts, the simple fact of the matter is cannabis does help. I don't see cannabis as a drug. It is a plant, a helpful plant that has many applications, not just of the medical kind, but of the agricultural, biochemical, and also it is literally like it is almost like the modern day peanut, because so many things can be done from a peanut in the same sense that so many things can be done from a cannabis plant. So again, I have nothing against it. Matter of fact, I'm all for it, because again, there is no downside. Okay, there is no downside to this, because the war on drugs is bullshit. It really was. It was bullshit. It was literally the CIA The CIA and the DOD wanted to use unlimited funds to fight cartels who were still getting their product through and was still making money off of us, no matter how much surveillance and weapons they really had. So again, the way that you defeat the war on drugs, because I've said on my this podcast, how to beat an illegal war, you legalize it and you tax it. Just like you did with alcohol and tobacco. When alcohol and tobacco were seen as things of a low moral stature, and that no human being should ever be drinking alcohol and moonshine and smoking tobacco, smoking tobacco or chewing tobacco if that's what you prefer. Remember those times back in the 1920s when you had those speakeasies and you had those houses that for good for partying and drinking and the occasional but again, you had those moonshine runners. What's so funny is compared to now, where, of course, I respect all positions because they always there and say, well, I wonder what will happen if marijuana is legal and, they choose to run it in the same sense that they run alcohol and tobacco. Ask Denver. I'm just being honest. Why not ask? I mean, if you truly want to know how marijuana will affect a city or a state once it's legal, let's ask the other states that have already done it. I mean, Canada is probably the most happiest country in the nation right now. Canada is probably the most happiest country in the northern hemisphere. That's just being honest. Canada is all marijuana legal. And you got to think, you thought Canadians were nice. Now, imagine when they're high. But not as not to insult Canadians. I'm just saying. But I don't get where the doctor was saying, well, I think it'll affect teenagers in a very negative way. Really? So opioids, antidepressants, oxycodone, narcotics, and everything else that they give children just seem to be the better option. And that's why doctors are pill pushers. But no, I see nothing wrong with the simple fact of the matter is just that's the way, that is honestly how, number one, how you get revenue. Number two, how crime rates drop. Because like I said, in every city that has legalized marijuana, the crime rate has dropped. Because you can't really rob anybody when you're high. You can't really go carjack when you're high. You really can't commit murders when you're high. When you're high, you're lucky you can find your freaking phone, honestly, from what I've been told. So again, it's almost a fear of, it's like a doctor. It's like, don't get me wrong, if you're a doctor and you're watching this, feel free to argue with me on this. But a doctor will prescribe you a narcotic that can kill you faster than acknowledging that marijuana could actually ease your problems and it would be a whole lot more efficient for you. That's because, Big Pharma pays them. Big Pharma pays them to push pills, but they tell them also to put down marijuana because let's be honest, if marijuana was legal in all 50 states, Big Pharma would be out of business. That's just being honest. And what did you guys say? What do you say, Vaughn? They would ask a black man. Yeah. BJ, if red-ass Florida made it legal medically, Tennessee needs to get it going. Tennessee, I'm going to be honest, until it might be a long, cold day. It might be a long, cold day in hell before Tennessee actually gets progressive. Because as you can see, too many paranoid individuals will always vote against their own interests. That's why I never could understand Republican voters. Republican voters, I don't get you because you're basically voting against the same things that got you in the hole in the first place. But yet you still keep voting for them, which amazes me so. That's the part that I just don't get. And of course, Vaughn, you're right. Clothes, paper, textiles, constructions. When it comes to the cannabis plant, there is many. I mean, it's almost to the point that I believe that the last time I checked with the patent office, it's like 175 patents off the cannabis plant alone. Angie, if they legalize it, jobs shouldn't be able to test for it. I agree. What do you say, Vaughn? A lot of politicians today are wealthy because of times. Yes, because a politician is basically a paid-for hoe. A politician is sometimes just a paid-for hoe until they actually admit it. And of course, legal weed and free healthcare for all. Which I'm gonna be honest, we're never gonna get free healthcare until we go to until we go to Medicare for all. Which Bernie Sanders sat there and said it best: a single payer system is eventually going to be what we're going to go to. But in a single payer system does not allow for profit health insurance companies like Cigna, Aetna, and all them. So if we went to single payer, those companies would be out of business because they have to make profit off people's pain. You take too many of any over-the-counter drugs, you can die. Yeah, you're right, Angie. I mean, yeah. You take 9 Tylenol, that'll be your last headache. Let's see. And of course, no, Vaughn. Name anyone who directly died after cannabis use. Nobody. We could go down the history book. We can go into the medical books. There has never been a death over cannabis. What did Cat Williams always said? What was Cat Williams' joke? You may have thought that dude was dead, but he gonna wake up in a few hours ready to eat up everything in your whole house. I think that's how the joke went. But no, I mean, I don't knock cannabis. I don't knock cannabis users. I don't knock cannabis because, like I said, this is actually how you solve a lot of things that go on in America. Not only the simple fact of the matter is just like, not only the simple fact of the matter, it's helpful, it's productive. It actually can help so many other people. I mean, not just kids, not just the kids with seizures and whatnot. You can actually help veterans with PTSD. I mean, because veterans, let's say, thank you for your services for all those who are still serving and still serving, who have served and still serving. But let's be actually honest, the VA is shit. And you would think, for all that you do, you think for a second that you should be getting the best health care at no cost to you, no questions asked. But, after they done used you up, they want to send you to the VA to where you're just given a name and a number, you're hopefully getting seen. And that's if you don't commit suicide. Like some poor soldier did. I wish I remember his name, but it was a while back where he was trying to get seen in the VA, couldn't get assistance, and he wound up taking his own life after serving their country. And that to me is more sad than anything else. These so-called Republicans, because yes, it is Republicans, who will sit there and vote these bills down to where these guys can actually get help, but they'll sit there and say there's no money for it. Yet Agent Orange sends 5,000 troops to the U.S. border and costs us $220 million. Right. I'm sorry, what did you say, BJ? Willie Nelson's old ass has been smoking since the Stone Age. He's still alive and healthy. I think Willie Nelson, I think at this point, has Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg, and all those that do it, there must be something, because I honestly don't know what I was gonna say the Fountain of Youth. I really was gonna say the Fountain of Youth, but honestly, I don't know what. I do attribute it to cannabis because let's be honest, Willie's kind of pushing up on what, 80s, mid 80s by now, or is it mid 70s? Somebody help me out with that, because I want to say Willie Nelson's in his 70s, but I think he's close to his 80s. I don't really know his age at the moment. If someone would be so kind to look that up as I'm talking, that'd be appreciated. But moving forward, another thing I did want to talk about, and I may lose some of y'all on this, and that's okay because it needs to be said. But first, before I talk about it, I'm just going to go ahead and play the video so that way you guys can get an idea of this situation. So, of course, about the proposed law in Ohio would redefine a person to include unborn humans and could treat abortion like murder. So, for those that are still around, I'm going to go ahead and play it. Okay, so, all right, so you're still with me. Oh, and thank you, Angie. 85 years old. Really? The man is 85 years old. Oh, son of a bitch. Well, yeah, here's to your health. Okay, so for a lot of you guys who just watched the video, yes, it was about abortion, about Ohio. Actually, for Ohio not only doing an abortion ban at 6 weeks, but they're also saying that they're trying to include the death penalty for those that would abort. And here's something, and here's things I've always said about this, about abortion. Of course, I'm a guy, so take it how you will in this. But I've always said I'm pro-choice, and I believe that women should have that choice because it is their body. It is their body. It is their right to carry or terminate. It's up to them. But I never understood that, and forgive me for being so vulgar. And well, you guys read the disclaimer, so here's the comparison I'm going to make. So a woman gets pregnant. And she's now in the state of Ohio. She has up until 6 weeks to decide if she wants to terminate. And if she does terminate, they make her listen to the heartbeat of the if the child has if the fetus has a heartbeat. They make her listen to it as a way of shaming her. You're about to kill this life that's inside of you, and could you live with it? And this, that, and the other. Pretty much shaming her. And now they're trying to push forward the death penalty on this. So you're telling me that a woman gets pregnant, that she is forced, unless because they call it medical, it has to be a medical emergency. So you're telling me that aside from her life being threatened, she's pretty much being forced to carry the child. So with that being said, I would like to add that being said, I say that's bullshit. Because number one, if a guy can fire off knuckle children at will and he's not held liable for terminating life, then at the same time, why should a woman who got pregnant, who decides that she doesn't want the child, should be penalized for that? And Vaughn said, so I can't abort the fetus, but she can be given a death penalty. Well, she can be. Well, here's the thing, and I say this now. When you say Vaughn, when you say it, so I can't abort, are you saying it from the side of the parent, as far as you being the guy in the situation, or the other way around? Because I want to get clarification on that before I answer that. But the thing I'm saying is just that if she basically has the ultimate decision on what she wants to do. If she wants to go through with it, cool. If she doesn't want to go through with it, it's her choice because it's her body. Because I'll be honest, if men can get pregnant, you would have abortion clinics around here like Starbucks. You would be sitting there with your latte. You'd be sitting there saying, "We're gonna do your abortion now." You can put down the pumpkin spice latte. That's what you can do. And you would think if it happened to guys, no problem. But here's what I say is the problem. And okay, okay, Vaughn, I know what you're saying now. Yeah, Vaughn. So basically, if she in Ohio, if the law gets passed, it's still being argued right now. But if the law passes and it's ratified, if she decides to abort, it is possible if she's outside of the 6 weeks, then she can be held liable. And yes, if it does pass, the death penalty can be on the table. Because there's too many Jesus freaks out there who are basically in legislation who want to force their beliefs onto somebody else. And honestly, not to go into rant number 4, but honestly, where does this whole thing about pro-life come from, if not from religion? It can't come from a sense of responsibility. It just can't. Argue with me if you would like, because I just don't understand. I try to understand from the pro-life side, but honestly, pro-life is bullshit. George Carlin said it best. Pro-life is bullshit because you only care about the child until the child is born. But after the child is born, good luck. We're not going to help you until you're 18. And when you're 18, you can enlist in the army, and then you can go fight our wars. But when you come back fucked up and drugged up, good luck. So really, you're not pro-life, you're just pro-birth is what you are. So it amazes me so. That's why I said the whole thing about And I say this, I said the whole thing about women, I hear people all the time, I am just so pro-life. I believe that the fetus should be given a chance. Okay, well, unless you're adopting the child, shut the fuck up. Because you are feeding a narrative to me that makes no sense. If you, like, okay, but again, this goes back, like I said, it all goes back to a woman's choice. Now, I've always said it best, a room full of old white men and old black men, because there are probably some in there, and others, a room full of old men cannot decide what a woman can do, a woman can or cannot do with her body. If a woman can't turn around and tell you, you know what, you can't jerk off, because every time you jerk off, you're killing your kids. You should be put to the death penalty. So you're telling me that so you're sitting there telling me that I can't sit there and fire off knuckle children without being given the death penalty? Yeah. Because if I get pregnant and I don't want the child and I terminate, you should be on the same hook with me, because it should be equal. But, guys like, well, sometimes you gotta get off. No. In my opinion, make the law equal. If a man is caught jerking off, and what they always say in the Bible, I hate to use the Bible but again, this is where the pro-life people and pro-lifers who are watching this, and you're watching this on the playback, please feel free to come at me on this, because I would love to debate this with you. But your whole basis on what you're coming from is religious. Because in most religions, they don't believe in abortions. They believe in carrying the child. But the thing about it is that religious idea twisted into this narrative, like, we have to save these children because no one will speak for them. But you don't want to adopt them. There's hundreds of thousands of there's thousands of children in the system right now waiting to be adopted, and you're worried about one that hasn't been born yet. One that in my mind, because I've always had this argument with people, because they always say conception starts with sex. No, it doesn't. Scientifically, it does not. And I could argue this all day, because the day you're born, birth date. The day you die, death date. When does life start? When you're born. It doesn't start when mommy and daddy decided to take one Kahlua too far and he forgot to put on a rubber. That's not where conception starts. Life itself does not start at conception. Life itself starts when you're born. That means you've made it. And life ends when you die, which we eventually will all do. But the simple fact of the matter is, the whole thing about life begins at conception, I'm sorry, until someone brings up a better point, is bullshit. It really is. But getting away from the fact of the matter is just that women this day, in 2018, are still not being allowed their God-given rights, their God-given unalienable rights to do with their bodies as they please. Because like I said, you're not going to stop a man. You're not going to stop a man from jerking off when he feels the need, because that's killing children. But you'll shame a woman who decides that she does not want to carry a child. But you'll shame her because you care about the life inside, but you don't want to take care of it. Bravo, pro-lifers. Bravo. I've seen more bullshit from Republicans, but bravo. So, I'm pretty sure that's gonna give me a lot of hate, because like I said, everybody always speaks to me after the podcast is done. It's never during, unless it's, like my usual regulars like Vaughn and Angie and BJ and Thomas. How you doing, Thomas? Hope all is well. I know you went to the gym night for Thanksgiving, so I hope you got that out of your system. We say Vaughn won't get anyone pregnant in Ohio. Well, like I said, it's a law that is still being argued. So it may get passed, it may not get passed. I'm keeping up with that, because like I said, I'm a big advocate of women's rights and their ability for pro-choice, and it should never be hindered. But some guys out there just believe that I should have a say, and that's a whole nother topic. But speaking of crazy Republicans, you guys remember, I may have talked about some last week's podcast about Cindy Hyde-Smith. The woman that sat there and said, if Trump invited me to an execution, I'd be to a lynching, I would be at the front row seat. She's actually running in Mississippi, where there's a wide history of public lynchings. So she has actually decided, instead of apologizing, she decided to be a Trump. Pull something else. So, I'll let y'all guys listen to it. Hopefully it plays.
When it really comes to this matter of rural hospitals closing, we know why. We know the reason for that. It's because our state did not accept the Medicaid extension money that was offered to us some years ago.
So, yeah. So pretty much you decide to double down and say, maybe we need to work on voter suppression. And if I'm her campaign manager, this would basically be me. But again, it amazes me so because, like I said, this is the Trump effect. This is pretty much where individuals will just speak and just shoot from the hip, and their audience eats this up. So, of course, she's going to say this around probably a bunch of constituents and pretty much say, well, I think we need to vote on voter suppression so those liberal schools and those individuals stop voting. And voter suppression is real. It's happened in Georgia. It's happened in Florida. It's happened in New Mexico, especially in Florida, because Florida at this point is still recounting. In Georgia, Stacey Abrams is still bringing up a lawsuit about Brian Kemp because, again, he, well, there's a lot of evidence. I can't say he was found guilty of it, but he allegedly manufactured his own election in which he won the governorship, which that's being brought into question. So voter suppression is real. But for Sidney Hyde-Smith to literally joke about it, and it's funny, that's fucking scary. Because democracy is at stake when it comes to voting, and let's be honest, voting is our voice. And if this post-midterm election has taught us anything, it's just that when you vote, it is literally amazing to see how many people came out. Because let's be honest, this was probably one of our better turnouts that I wish this turnout kind of happened when Clinton and Trump are going against each other. I could live with Clinton as president. She's qualified, but we decided to go with the Agent Orange doll. So there's that. So, like I said, if you're in Mississippi and you're voting, like I said, I never try to tell people how to vote or who to vote, but please do the right thing. Please do the right thing. That's all I ask. They say BJ Thomas kind of got that Hitchcock going on. You gotta explain that one, sir. Vaughn, no, they wouldn't outlaw jerking off. Too many children of politicians to get life sentences. But again, that to me is making it equal. That to me is like saying if a woman is going to be held liable for that, then the guy should be held liable too. So maybe if both of them put on death row, there'd be a lot of different, a lot of people would be looking different at that law. BJ, she's a special kind of dickhead. She's an elongated, god dang, elongated clitoris. Wow. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting where I said about these individuals to where, like I said, it's the Trump effect. The Trump effect is where like they're pretty much capitalizing on saying the most outlandish stuff because these crowds are eating it up. But that's the story of a con man. Con man is not actually here to make you smile. He's actually making sure you give him money and then he goes off. But again, switching gears on that. So the last two things we're going to talk about, as far as the Dow, because I don't really have a video for this, so I'll try to do the best I can about this. So the Dow is, anybody who hasn't noticed, the Dow, which is the stock market, is basically on a bender. It's actually dropped 552 points. Now, so what does that mean? So basically what that means is that for all those that don't remember, for all those who are not familiar with the stock market actually affects prices across the board. It affects groceries, gas, electric, crude oil, things of that nature. So you're probably wondering why we've had an increase in prices. Well, partfold it is because of the Dow being dropped in points and a combination of Trump's tariffs and the tariffs that have been put on us from other countries. All three of these things in tandem are the reason why we're paying higher in prices on really damn near everything. So in case at this point, the Dow is the stock market's always used as a sense of the stock market always uses a sense of confidence. You know, if the economy is doing good, the Dow is up. If we are hitting some shit or something's about to go down the rails, the Dow is down. So the Dow actually has been down for almost 3 weeks. Now, at the time of that publication, it did start to bounce back up as of today, but not anywhere level. I mean, I think it rose back up by 200 some odd points, which means that there is a confidence in consumer spending. But what does that basically mean for all of us? It doesn't actually say a lot because, like I said, as I spoke on previous podcasts, the tariffs that Trump put in place are actually harming us more than helping us. So it should actually just be at this point to where as long as those tariffs are in place, the other countries' tariffs remain in place. Because, you know, he wants to raise taxes on the same people we're buying stuff from. And you shouldn't raise taxes on your landlord because your landlord pretty much can kick your ass out. And that's what's actually happened to us because we're feeling it on the lower part. Of course, Trump's friends above the 750K line aren't going to feel this because they're getting tax breaks. But since there's no middle class anymore, it's just pretty much them and us, and we're footing the bill. So that's the reason why this is why the reason I'm saying as far as the Dow, because I do follow Dow. And honestly, on a side note, if you may not know about the stock market or have very little information about the stock market, please, oh please, I would encourage you to follow it. You know, there's multiple sites out there to where you can learn about the stock market, how it works, you know, about the bear and the bull market, what it means when it's up, what it means when it's down, what it means when it fluctuates. Because like I said, knowledge is wealth, and you should be knowing more about what's going on in the world. Because like I said, I myself, no expert on the stock market. I'm actually learning as much as you guys are learning, but I try to actually present it best in the best way I can, so that way you guys get it too. But I always encourage you to go out there and do your own research. Never always take somebody's word for granted. Definitely that. But at this point, you know, when the Dow is down, as Vaughn put it so carefully, the Dow should be now called the down because it's down. Oh, you mean okay, Will Smith? You mean Hancock, BJ? Okay, remember Will Smith's movie? You mean Hancock, not Hitchcock? Okay, I see now. Yeah, if Thomas is watching, you are officially Hancock now. So that's about the stock market. So the last story we're going to talk about, kind of a quick one. So if you haven't heard by now about Donald Trump's personal concubine, his daughter Ivanka Trump. Yes, I said personal concubine because he has creepily talked about basically fucking his daughter. Creepily. It's almost on some eyes wide shut level shit, really. So anyway, Ivanka Trump decided that she was caught using a private email server during the start of her daddy's administration. Why does that sound so familiar? Oh, right, because Hillary Clinton did the same thing and they gave her shit for it. And the funny part about this whole thing is, there was wall-to-wall coverage on Fox or State News about Hillary Clinton's private email server. And when it came up about Ivanka Trump's, 25 seconds. So it's interesting about the next story. Like I said, this is pretty much about her using a personal email server and what they were looking into.
Use personal email for government business. Oh my goodness.
Look, when I read that, my first reaction was, okay, so it's sort of a bipartisan issue, right? Both sides are using personal email for different things. And so you say, so why are they doing that? And so I don't know the answer, but I think that these watchdogs and people should figure out why there's a proclivity on both sides to do that. And by the way, I heard what Mark said about it being critical, and I think it'll be a great campaign talking point for Democrats to bring up the fact that she did do it.
Do you think it's hypocritical?
Well, certainly, I think it's hypocritical. I think even Ivanka, if she was, interviewed about it, she'd have to say that it was a mistake. You can't do that in that position. But here's what I do know, and I was only in that position for a very short period of time. There had to be a reason why she was doing that. The same thing I would say about Secretary Clinton.
That's awfully generous now, Anthony, because you know that people chat lock her up about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, no,
so now you're saying, whoopsie daisy, it's just a mistake on both sides?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think it's a serious matter. I'm not making light of it. I'm just trying to say to you, intellectually, Secretary Clinton, a very smart person, Ivanka Trump, Kushner, a very smart person. They both strategically did the same thing. I don't think they did it without intention. I mean, they just accidentally did it. So there has to be a reason for it. We have to figure out why people are doing that, and we have to figure out what the laws are around it.
So, let's point something out here. Let's point something out here. So Andy Scaramucci, which used to be the White House Communications Director, the Mooch, keep in mind, also is under indictment by Mueller. He's sitting there waiting for his fate along with everybody else. But has the nerve to sit there and say, well, I don't know why she's using a private email server. Why else would you use a private email server? You don't want anybody to find the shit you're doing. So, like I said, it is amazing to me how well you have individuals come forward, and it's along the lines of just saying, well, I don't know why she would be using it in the same sense Hillary Clinton used it. Well, here's the thing about that. Hillary Clinton she's not in office anymore. She's not. She hasn't been the Secretary of State since President Barack Obama decided to say, you know what? Y'all wanted the white dude. Peace. He was out. She hasn't been in office. She tried to run for president. She's not even a senator anymore. She's living her best life. Barack Obama, I still call him President Obama because, in my mind, he still should get the title, is living his best life. But it amazes me how so many people will still be on this line of, well, it's just that Hillary had private emails and Benghazi. Let's never forget Benghazi. Let's beat Benghazi into the ground. That had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton because a bunch of Republicans basically cut the funding on border security over international countries, and that's the reason why international countries like our embassies got fucked up. Nothing to do with her. But the private emails, which were regarding what exactly? But you basically wanted to throw so much smoke on Hillary Clinton to the point to where you wanted to make her look like she was guilty. But here we go. We have Ivanka Trump. We have Agent Orange's spawn. The daughter that he says is so beautiful and she's hot. Look at her. She's fucking gorgeous in a very creepy pedophile sort of way. And she's been found using a private email server. Oh, and trust me, you'll never find that server. That server at this point is probably smashed to a million pieces. Every record of it is probably destroyed, and it's almost like Jimmy Hoffa being buried in a giant stadium. It's a rumor now. That's all it is. Because it is amazing to me that stories so fake. I won't say fake news, but state news, Fox News spent so little time over it. They spent less than a Subway commercial on it. Oh, Ivanka had a private email server. Ooh, scandalous. So what's the next Starbucks coming out? That's pretty much it. Whereas other news cycles are sitting there saying, well, wait a minute. Why are we giving this so little attention when Hillary Clinton got all the smoke? I think Ivanka deserves all the smoke. Which, by the way, the Smoke of Truth podcast coming out soon. But it was one of those things where like I said, when we see them, and of course, typical Republicans, whenever they're caught doing something, it's always, but the other side does it too. Hillary did it. It's like, well, Hillary's, and it's almost like you want to be like a parent where you caught the middle child, and the middle child is blaming the oldest child, and the oldest child's in college. it's almost like, why'd you run curfew? Well, so-and-so did it. So-and-so's in college right now. What's that got to do with you? That's the way as citizens we do feel about that. It's almost like, why are you blaming the other person? Motherfucker, it's you. You are the one that needs to answer to us. But like I said, it's a whole thing of being, to me, it's a whole thing of being compromised. I mean, it is obvious Agent Orange is compromised. It is obvious his entire fucking family is compromised. Except that one daughter that he doesn't want to show, because I personally think she got dirt on him. But it amazes me so after all these stories so far that when we keep on saying, and I say this best, and I say this from a line from one of the greatest television shows that were ever on air, The Newsroom, which if you have HBO, look at The Newsroom, watch all 3 seasons, best writing on television that I go back and still watch. But there's a line in it that pretty much the guy says, America is not the greatest country in the world. And he said statistically, the line goes, there has never been any actual data that proves that America is the greatest country in the world. We just say that just because it sounds great, but really it's a bullshit lie. And he goes off on this tangent on explaining why we're not the best country in the world, and then goes to the whole thing, well, we could be if we did this, that, and the other. So here's the thing. Just to wrap this all up and to give it a nice little bow on it. When you look at the simple fact of the matter is just that we still, the migrant caravan that they don't talk about anymore. We still have troops that are at that border that are basically just sitting there and basically sitting there for these people that are just coming seeking political asylum. When you have women who are still having to worry about their rights in 2018, when you still have police brutality still going on, and then at the same time, when we try to give oversight to the police community, we try to give an oversight to where the police actually have to answer to somebody, they want to sit there and cry foul. When you see the inequality as far as taxes going, at the same time you have a president that's pretty much a jailhouse bitch to every other third world country, including Saudi Arabia, Russia, and possibly Iraq at this point, and Pakistan, and also North Korea, that takes away a lot of the problems that we're having. Not to mention the fact matters, like I said before, Democrats, when you come in office on December, unify and finally get this done. And Mr. Mueller, if I ever get the honor of you watching this podcast, please wrap up this investigation, because I think we're all tired about Trump about now. But the only way we can get out of this, guys, like I said before, is simply put, that how the frack we got here, we already understand. We just now need to come together and get the frack out of it. But I'm going to leave it here for that being said. So a little shameless plugging before I go. Of course, my How the Frack podcast is always on Wednesday from 9 to 10. A little bit later today. I apologize. I will have an Off Limits podcast that will be at a specific location. By specific location, I mean it won't be here, but it will be it'll be a Thanksgiving location. But it will be Saturday. It'll be Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. as well. Of course, my other friend Vaughn, who's watching on here, he has podcasts too. He has I Get That Reference BST. BST is just a 30-minute podcast, which he goes over news and views and things of that nature that he likes to share. He also has Rhythmness, where you can remember the rhythm, where he actually goes over albums and actually rates them 4-tier system. Always fun and interactive on that show, because I like to be on there a lot, as he'll probably sit there and say that I tend to not like some of the music, but then again, we're not all critics, all in good fun. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. I'm sorry, Vaughn, the chest can't do it today. So hopefully you hopefully got the bite sound for that. So the Random as Fuck was basically just usually early morning show, to where he just finds videos and just topics and just discuss them from there. Another person who's not here on the podcast, but he also is always close around us, Trace, who actually has The Bump Down, which is also a musical podcast, which he goes over what's on the charts and what's on the mainstream, on the underground, just so you know what's out there and what's actually on the come up. And of course, he goes over different subjects, things of that nature. And between him and Vaughn, they have some of the most interesting conversations that you just have to tune in to watch. And aside from that, Thomas, if you're still watching this, like I said, his podcast is still to be determined. He's going to get around to it, we hope. And also the I Get That Reference Gaming podcast. We are going to start doing that. I know we haven't been really consistent about that podcast. We definitely apologize. As soon as we get that together, that might be revolving around a Sunday or a Monday. Sunday evening or Monday night, Sunday night or Monday night, just depending, because like I said, it's a gaming podcast that we do a roundtable discussion on what's coming out there and what's coming out and things of that nature. But with that being said, all of our channels can be found on the Facebook group I Get That Reference. That's I Get That Reference with an I. It is open to all. The only request that we have is that you are active participating, which means as long as you're sharing, posting, answering questions, starting conversations, that's all we ask for you to do. Just be cool and go from there. And like I said, if you can't be cool, then we're basically going to boot you out and then report you to Zuckerberg. But aside from that, as far as following our shows there, Vaughn, if you be so kind to put up a link to where I cannot remember that whole Vaughn TV thing. The link that Vaughn puts up in this podcast is actually a link to where we may be all moving to sooner or later, as soon as we get those details figured out. But that's where you can watch Vaughn on a lot of his podcasts. And also, for YouTube, all of our shows are on YouTube. So if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up The Bump Down, if you look up Off Limits Podcast, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, all of those have YouTube pages that you can like, share, and subscribe, and we try to actually keep those updated as much as possible. And also, Vaughn also put in the audio link because he actually has his podcast on audio, which are available on Google Play, Spotify, and iTunes, and also on Spotify. Look up the Bump Down. As you can actually find Tracy's playlists there and be able to go from there as well. And the last thing I'll say about all this is, as I get to the end, is that How the Frack We Got Here is not just about doom and gloom, it's about staying informed. Because I've learned that an informed society can make better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one will get you Trump. But as long as people are willing to go in, do the research, have moderate debates and conversations, and all come to a consensus, then we're all better for it. And that is how we avoid the frack that got us here in the first place. So guys, that's pretty much going to be it for this evening. Like I said, this this pre-Thanksgiving, for all those that are cooking or not cooking. If you are cooking, we appreciate you. If you're bringing food, we appreciate you. Please don't bring the potato salad with raisins in it. Please don't bring mac and cheese with anything but the best that Velveeta can offer. And please, oh please, if you have not already defrosted your turkey for at least 48 hours, do not try to put that frozen bird in deep fry, because you are going to burn down your goddamn house. Aside from that, guys, that's all the turkey tips I got. Hope you guys do enjoy Thanksgiving, although, the meaning behind it is real fucked up just because it was more genocide than anything else of Native Americans. But really, the whole idea behind Thanksgiving is just being with your loved ones, having a plate of food, and basically just enjoying each other's company. Because you know what's going to happen next? Black Friday. Everybody hates Black Friday. But anyway, that's going to be it, guys. I hope you guys have a good evening. I was going to say Merry Christmas. Oh, God. A happy Thanksgiving, guys. This has been the How the Frack We Got Here podcast for tonight. I've been Will Buchanan. You guys have been great. Thanks, guys, for all watching. And like I said on the back end, if you're watching this on the repeat, because I know you Trump supporters will, just go ahead and respond to me normally. I'll be able to see it, and we go from there. Again, guys, happy Thanksgiving. Peace.